Okay, thank you for tuning into Stampscaping 101. This is the first of many videos where I'll go into the usage of some different sets that we have within the line. This is the set right here that I used in this video. It's Nature Set number 6, and it's, featuring the Lakeside Canvas set. I go into, the different images and the different incarnations that you can get this set in, and how to use the different imagery in there with their sibling designs, used in like a complete scene like this, or this one that I stamp in this video right here. Or I'll go into how you can use these stamps kind of individually, in different compositions. It goes into this. You can check these out online too, where you see the sets. I have this insert, scanned and placed on the website in there, but you can kind of go in and check that out. But this video, as always, with all of my videos, gets really long-winded, and I kind of go into, not only the compositions like this and how to use the stamps, but I just did this composition right here, and I had to finish it off, so this video kind of runs about an hour long. But anyways, here's the finished scene that comes about in this vid, and I'm gonna add in some different embellishments to it, and by way of the color box pigment inks and some of the glossy gel pen. Probably in white and maybe a blue gel pen or something like that. But anyways, I hope you enjoy this video, and once again, thanks for tuning in. Okay, let's look at Nature Set number 6. This is the packaged cling foam version of the set. It also comes in a rubber sheet only, and also in wood-mounted form. Okay, now this set, not all the Nature sets come with a insert like this, a color insert, but this one does. And the difference between, how you can tell the difference, of course, if you're new to stamping, these ones are mounted on this thing called cling foam, and it comes with this plastic storage sheet. A lot of people put these in binders and store them this way, sometimes with the sheet next to it, or flipped on reverse like that. And, then a binder, they put these in those little plastic sleeves so that when you open this, you can tell what each one of these stamps are. But the cling foam is this magnetic temporary adhesive system, and it sticks right onto an acrylic block. This, ink it up, temporary mounting system. Pull it right back off, put it back on the storage sheet, and it's ready to go. Cling foam is not an adhesive, so it's not going to get, your acrylic or your plastic storage sheet tacky. Okay, but going back to the set, this is the color insert, and the set's number, let's see, I think it's 5 through 12 at this point in time. It's 2014 right now. These come with these inserts like this, and shows you some different compositional, building, and perspective layouts, and also some ideas on how to use these stamps, in addition to the color example on the cover right here, utilizing all, in this case, 6 images, 6 stamps. But also on the inside there's some different compositions, just using, maybe in this case it's, let's see, that's 2 of the stamps. It's the tree. These are shrunk down scenes right here. This is the pine tree in the foreground, along with the pine row in the background, stamped multiple times. And this scene right here is just using that pine tree. Some of the reeds right here. The reeds are the stamp. And the ledge has been used multiple times. In this case, here's the ledge right here. It's just been used down here at the bottom of this scene, stamped down like that, but here it's been stacked and placed at an angle for a little bit more drama, I guess you'd say, and visual movement. And like I said, it's been used multiple times right here. I'll do some quick layouts here and show you some different applications of these stamps and a couple different compositional builds. And then in a separate video, I'll try to get to doing the complete scene in full color, using those images from within the set. Okay, going back to this cling foam set, like I said, it also comes in a plastic sheet, just with the layout like this, and you just have to cut those out yourself, and instead of, you can mount it up yourself onto cling foam and use this thing called tack and peel. It gets permanently affixed to an acrylic block. Okay, it has this little plastic thing that comes right off there, and these aren't stamps from this set right here, but you would just stick it down like that. Temporary mounting system, and you pull that right off. Okay. People do it all kinds of different ways. Some people like the, just that rubber sheet, and sometimes they take those stamps, they're just bare stamps, and they mount them on wood. Most mount them on clean these days, and people that use those stamps in that incarnation often use the tack and peel. Okay, but in this case, I'll use this pre-cut cling foam. I don't want to spend this time in this video cutting out a bunch of rubber. So these ones are pre-trimmed and ready to go. That foam is about 1/8 of an inch thick, so it gives it a little bit of extra cushion for getting clean impressions. And if you don't have, that little bit of foam right there, and let's say you're just using the tack and peel and rubber, what I find that works really well is to have a stack of paper like this. It's not going to be spongy, but it'll still give have a little bit of give to it, and I feel that accommodates or compensates for any irregularities that you might have on your table, like if there's a crease or something like that on your table. If your table's not perfectly flat, this kind of helps to have a this is a stack of probably 20 sheets of just copy paper, or blotter paper in this case, as far as what I use it for. Okay, going back to the set now. Let's try some different stamps out here. What I try to do in these sets, let's see, especially 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, really all of the sets, is I kind of base the sets around a central image. In this case, it's the Lakeside cabin, and I tried to figure out what stamps would go really well with it, within a set. Now, all of the stamps in the Stampscapes line have been designed to be used with their sibling designs. Now, I don't know if I would use a scene like this with pine trees with a bunch of palm trees or something like that, but for the most part, you can use a lot of other stamps with this, image. Okay, in this case, I have some trees right here, and I have this pine row, and I figured, okay, if you stamp this out in the middle and you want a bunch more of these trees in the background, if I only had this stamp right here, I could probably do something just with that side of the tree. Okay, but I would have to be careful not to stamp out a bunch of cabins around. I would just have to use these trees, but it's just easier to use a tree like this and to use that as a background, as foreground elements or whatnot. It's a water scene, but there's nothing to be, to say that you can't use this Lakeside cabin as, a cabin in the meadow or something like that, just by not inking up this bottom portion of this image where it represents reflections in the water. Just don't ink it up like that. Stamp it out, fill it in with a bunch of grass down here or dirt or whatever, and it could be a meadow down here. You can turn a lake or a water scene into a land scene. But since this is a water scene, we have the basic water pattern. Okay, so you have this tree as a background, the water as a filler, foreground. It could be background too. If you put some of that water texture in the background, it would look like this is more of an island sitting there. If you put a bunch of trees up here, it would be a much larger island, or it would just be the other side of the lake, and the rest of it being land. Okay, now this is upside down right here, because that's the way I have it on the plate, but this is a ledge stamp right here. Like I said, it can be used in foregrounds. You can also stamp that behind, behind the cabin, and let's say it's some kind of granite, rock in the background of this cabin, so you can do that too. It's a really good blending tool. And of course with pine trees of that size, I like to have a larger element for, using in the foreground. So that's where we go with the large pine. More foreground with this grassy texture like that. It gives a good foreground without filling it up in the foreground, where you can't see the background. So it's nice and light and spindly. And I like that as a real basic image, okay? Reeds. Anyway, okay, let's get into some of the different compositions. There's many ways you can do this cabin here. Okay, oops. I guess I could use it on this tack and peel side, because I have this protective strip in here, but for the most part you just go straight on to your acrylic block. Alright, now sometimes when stamps are brand new, what I do is I kind of just rub my hand on this just a little bit, just to kind of rub off whatever, kind of resist there was on the plate. I feel this rubber right here, and I don't feel I really need to do that too much. So let's just get right on into the impressions. I'm not going to do these in full scenes on this video. I just kind of want this to be an introduction to some of these stamp sets. Okay. Here's a scene done on horizontal right here, but there's nothing to be said that you can't stamp something more vertical. I mean, it could be a square or a circle too, or something like that, but your basic cards are going to be rectangles. Okay, let's do this one just for the for a little bit of variation. Let's stamp this really high on my card. Give it some good pressure. Okay, equal pressure. Don't rock your stamps. Okay, otherwise it'll give too strong of an impression and smudge the perimeter elements. Okay, now I stamped that really high in the scene, so what is the scene going to be about for the most part? Well, it's going to be mostly about this lake down here, right? So you're going to have a lot of water down here. Okay. Now, I mean, I could have, if I wanted to, if you have a large enough block, I could have put this up here, and I could have mounted, say, something like this rock right down here, inked them both up, and stamped them both at the same time if I wanted to. But just to give myself a little bit more variation and, I don't know, choice when it came to stamping that out, if I do this, if I ink this up and stamp it now, then I still have the choice of how close I want to put it to this, what's going to be the background as soon as I stamp this out. Okay, we'll give this a little bit more space. Let's say I have a, canoeist or something like that I want to add in there. You can use any of the other elements from the Stampscapes line, or really from any other company, and use the this set as a kind of a foundation for other companies' imagery. There's a lot of great stamps out there from a lot of different companies that work really well with the Stampscapes line. Okay, that's I mean, it's a slightly different feel. This one's like I said, horizontal. This one's vertical. Now I have different colors working in this, but I'm just going to do this in black and white for compositional sake. Okay, now this is a water pattern stamp right here. Okay, now we can use this in many different ways, but for the most part, how I use it is as texture. Okay, so I don't just go for like one impression here and there. And now, if this was a scene that I do in color, I would use this in color, the most traditional way to use, water stamp would be, do something in blue, but, if you're doing a sunset scene, I wouldn't stamp, the water out in blue. I'd probably do it in, some of the colors of, the sky around that time of day. A photographer calls that the magic hour or something like that. It's when all the colors are turning, and, it often creates the most amount of drama. Okay, but anyways, I've stamped this out multiple times. This is in black too. You don't necessarily have to do it in black. In this scene right here, if you can see it at all, might be kind of subtle, but I've stamped it out in light blue down there. Okay, let me see if I can get that to focus in. See that in light blue? And then over here, I've probably stamped it in a little bit of a darker blue. Okay. And okay, these are too tiny, but I've stamped out, text. Sorry about the blurriness here. Let's see if I can get this to focus in. Okay, I've stamped that water pad out in blue here, and in the sunset scene, it is in like a brown or something like that. Kind of, the colors of the sky. Okay, that's the water pattern stamp, and let's see. Let's do something with this pine. Okay, large trees. I usually don't stamp them way up here. I like to have my foreground kind of going off the page, a little bit. A lot of people like to use acrylic blocks over, say, wood blocks just for placement and registration of the imagery, because you can see through there, obviously. It would be nice, yeah, if I had the image printed on the back of that cling, but, I mean, it's in that shape good enough to where I really don't need that. Okay, so what are we doing? We're doing multiple impressions of this, and I'm changing the height with each impression. Okay, so it doesn't, I don't want this to look like, it's the same image just used over and over again. Ideally with scenic stamping, you want everything to kind of blend, merge together, and look like, there's some continuity running throughout the scene. And if any of you are scenic stampers, and if you've ever shown your work, shared your work with others, quite often, when people, the recipients of your work, if they're not rubber stampers, a lot of times when they see something like this, and, if they're kind of curious to know how you did it, quite often the comment is how did you do it? They can't tell if, now I just blotted this black off. I do this in a different color, but since this is monochromatic, just for the sake of, this video and, this introduction to the sets, I'm doing it in black, so by blotting it off like this, I'm taking off a lot of the ink, and hopefully I'm going to get a gray. Okay, now I'm wiping off the bottom of this so that when this transitions down into here, hopefully it just gets, lighter. Okay, like that, see that? But anyways, that's kind of what's going on with this thing right here, except instead of doing it, this in black, and those trees in gray, or, a blotted black, I stamped those out in green back there. Okay, probably green and a little bit of brown. I colored it with, like brush markers, onto the stamp. Oops, sorry about that. I hope I didn't just spend the last 30 seconds showing everything kind of completely off camera. Anyways, but like I said, I take a brush marker, to get those colored images down. I just color up the stamp, probably with brown and blue, and then I made the impression. So it was inherently lighter in value than the foreground image on that scene. All right, so I don't know, that's another lesson too. You can take any one of your colors, and in theory, you can get that color or that value of that hue and take it all the way down, through that range of tones all the way to white, just by how diluted this is in terms of the color or how dry it is on the stamp, okay? So there's a real light version of it, right? Okay, so one composition like that. And I try to put in these sets, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I try to put some of the most universal images into these sets, meaning, they're widely applicable to a lot of different scenes. I mean, that water pattern stamp, that's in the set, you can use it with any water element, okay? A lot of people in scenic stamping, inevitably we do something with water. Water's kind of it can represent a lot of different things, power and calm, but a lot of times, we're all drawn to water, drawn to a lake or the ocean. People like going to see, hike, miles to see a certain waterfall, or something like that. Okay, now this is the ledge stamp. I love the blending ability of this stamp, okay? Stamped individually like that, it would look isolated and kind of blocky if just left by itself. But what I do is I go in and I overlap, and let's see, and I change the angle slightly from one impression to the next, overlapping like that, and we can build a much larger ledge. Okay, now I blended that from, right to left or whatever. Now we're going to blend up and down. In other words, I'm going to do the top portion of that blending into, the bottom portion up there, okay? And as a designer of stamps, scenic stamps, as far as the concept of blending, I'm successful as a designer when I come up with a design or construction that really blends in with its sibling designs with minimal effort, okay? I don't have to mask anything off. All I have to do is overlap. There might be a time when you might need stamp positioners for something. 99.99% of the time, I don't need that. If anything, it might be a torn paper towel to mask off some little area, but I really don't really consider that masking. I guess it is, but like I said, it's little to no effort at all in terms of the placement of that. Okay, so anyways, this is large ledge, relatively speaking, and that's something like that. Okay. In this scene, it's like I said, these are reductions here in terms of the all these samples right here are all this size of card, so I've reduced them, but you can see how this is kind of tilted like that. All right. So, I don't know. I guess in that scene, in that sample right there, what I did was, let's go back to that reed stamp here. Okay. Let's sync this up. What I did on that scene was I stamped this in the foreground like this. This gives things a little more continuity too, in terms of trying to eradicate the idea that this has been the same image, just used multiple times. If you have kind of put something in there that's a little bit irregular, okay, that I can see that that's that same rock right there, it's hard to tell where one image ends and the other one begins, but I do see that kind of pattern in there. What you can do is you can kind of push that pattern of that, one rock back a little bit. Now I'm masking off some of these rocks, okay, and putting some of these reeds so that that grass looks like it's growing out of some of the cracks in the ledge, right? And that really happens out in nature. I often wonder why, why on earth is some big ancient tree growing out of some 3-inch crack in the, solid granite rock? And I think it's just because it was, some seed got wedged in there and it didn't blow away, as a sapling. It's, it's really kind of protected, even though it has kind of minimal, I don't know, nutrition coming out of the soil. It's really anchored in there, and that could be the same for grasses and things like that growing out of solid rock. Okay, now let's see right here. I'll wash these stamps up later. I don't know. Let's see. Let's do one more composition. I was mentioning that that ledge stamp could be used as a background. I haven't really done that too much over the years, but why not try it out right now? Okay. I'm smudgy with this black ink. I just re-inked my pad. Okay, let's go. Let's go about right here. Okay, that's better. When you re-ink your pads, try not to ink them up so much that when you, stamp something out with it, it kind of leaves smudges and whatnot. What I did this time, well, this one right here, I just inked this like, 10 minutes before I started doing this video, but I pressed a little bit too hard. This time right here, I just inked it up slightly less, and then I used less pressure, okay? Okay, let's see. Let's try this ledge stamp. Like I said, temporary mounting, this thing's really clingy and stuck. Okay, now like I said, if I was stamping this out in color and not just working on a few different compositions, I might color this up with some variations of blue in there or something like that. Okay, solid granite behind there. Now, like I said, I'm kind of blotting off the bottom of this. When I have something stamping into something else, and these trees are kind of delicate, they're thin. What I do like to do is I like to kind of blot off the background images. Now see, this is also why I don't have to mask off all those trees. It's just because I make the thing that's transitioning into them lighter, so those trees still stand out like that. Okay, now this kind of looks funny over here, right? Kind of leaves a hole, and that's where something like these trees come in handy. Yeah, this is the pine row. It's just a really universal stamp. I call them kind of, when I think about these things like the water pattern or the reeds, they're kind of the more generic images. And what I mean by that is, it's not generic in terms of something that's boring, but it's the one that's most universally applicable to a variety of different scenes. You can use that water pattern in a swamp, tropical scene. Some people have even used it as texture in a sky, kind of like maybe in like a mackerel sky or something like that. Maybe not quite, but just having some different texture, like in your sky to give it some variation. Okay, now here's some pine trees are very applicable in, you know, a variety of situations that where you might require trees. Okay, let's go with these trees somewhere like this. I'm stamping them right. It's going to represent something that's kind of behind the lakeside cabin and in front of those background rocks. Okay. Let's see. They look a little bit tall to me, and the scene's looking slightly imbalanced. So let's take and ink up this side of it right here. Okay, I'm being lazy. Usually when the stamp is larger or equal to the size of the pad, I usually go pad to stamp. It's just easier. These are the Marvy pads, which are of course now discontinued. Some of them are still out there in circulation. We still have a few different colors and stuff, but I guess, you know, if you have a different type of pad that's easy to handle, you can also ink it up, you know, like that. These ones are smaller, so they're easy to hold. They're just tight. There. Little things, I don't know. Why did they discontinue those things? I'll never know. Well, actually, I know, but I wish they didn't. Okay. Just this little bit on this side was stamped right there. It's a little bit more balanced, right? In terms of a visual weight, you know, I don't want to make things too heavy on one side. It kind of looks lopsided. Okay, let's see. Smaller stamp, smaller block. I forgot I had the smaller block. I need a couple other blocks too for variation. Let's do something. Let's, instead of just stamping out that black, let's go with some color. I'm looking around. Oh, here we go. It's always like on the very bottom of the pile, whatever pad you're looking for. Okay, now this is going to look like a complete scene, but stamping this out in black might look kind of funny. I mean, blue. But this would kind of be the foundation of a scene to be colored, right? Now, if you've watched any of the videos, I don't know, the other instructional videos on this channel, you'll know that I like to make my edges kind of darker. Alright, so this is, you know, fairly light blue. But what I like to do is I like to make the sides darker, so let's go in with a darker blue on the perimeter. Okay. And as I do this, I realize, you know what, I can't stand leaving this scene like this. I have to finish it. I'll try to do it quickly, though, I promise. Or I'll make it quick, I promise. I guess I can try to. And it could take 2 hours, you know. But, I don't know how some of you guys sit through these videos. Yeah. One time like I said, I guess I've seen it before because I did this, but one time I fell asleep watching my own video. I think it was when I was adding in the annotations. That's why sometimes I don't add in the annotations, because I think, oh my gosh, I got to sit through you know, whatever, 45 minutes of video listening to my monotone delivery. Okay. Looking at this scene right here, just some quick lighting options. As I'm scanning this over, I see this area in the sky. It's a little bit light, you know. I'm looking at this rock right here in the background, the cabin. I want the attention to go to this cabin right here, alright? So I'll probably make the area behind it a little bit darker. This is the Adirondack Aqua that I'm going to start off with, okay? Adding it down in there. It's very, very light blue. You know, one of the ways that I should really teach these videos sometimes is I should talk as though I'm talking to people that are going to teach, this technique. Like I'm talking to teachers, because what I would say is, to an instructor that's going to do this technique, I would always say, now here's one thing to watch for, in a workshop, for people that haven't done this before is, they'll put this ink down, okay, like this, and they think, oh my gosh, it's not dark enough, it doesn't look like this scene or an example, a finished example. And it's because these colors are so light to begin with. Sometimes what happens is they think, oh my gosh, I can barely see that right there. So what they do is they start scrubbing with these applicators, and what you get is a tear in it. And one of my last videos, it talks about kind of, being careful. But an example of why that happens is quite often because they add this ink down. Okay, people that are new to this technique, and it's understandable. They're not used to laying down layer upon layer of ink. They're used to, putting like a layer down, and that's it. You've colored in a certain area of something. A lot of stamps are outlines, and what you do is you color in certain areas. Maybe not so much, these days, where there's all kinds of blending and layering of tone and, embellishments and whatnot. But there's a lot of layers here, and we're starting off with a shadow stamping ink, and this is how dark this ink gets. It's super light, right? But what it's doing is it's kind of establishing some areas that are a little bit lighter, again, going to be a little bit darker, but it's not doing it with a full commitment to that area in terms of value that's going to be colored in. Okay, so in other words, we're coloring in with this super light ink what's going to have color on it, but it's doing it in a very light fashion. Okay, so it's a completely, what I'm getting at is it's a completely careful process. Okay, but if you're an instructor teaching someone, you have to be careful that people understand that as they're laying this down, they're also establishing a lighting scheme with a very, very light tone right now, and they're also building up some color on here, some ink that is thick with the Adirondack lights, so that they won't get any undesirable, marks like that. This is a blotter paper, so it's absorbent, but this is a thinner ink that penetrates more. But when you do it over the top, like I said, if you're an instructor, your students will never have anything stuck hard and fast like that, like a big fingerprint in the middle. In this case it's a stylus tool print in the middle of the card, because they've laid down that ink right there. It's the absolute, I don't know, bad analogy. It's like the ultimate weapon against undesirable marks, because everyone can put, this down right there, and it spreads out beautifully. Okay, it'll save yourself, a lot of people a lot of heartache, and if you're teaching this, technique, your students will have a super easy time, even if it's their first card they've ever done, if they lay down enough of that Adirondack Lights ink down as a base. Okay, alright, now going in here, this is Salvia Blue Marvy color, Marvy Matchable, and it could be any brand of inks. Okay, what I've done is I've just basically moved up to a light blue. So the Aqua is a very thick ink, but it's a very, very light blue ink. Okay, this one's light. I'm not jumping too far ahead. Okay, let's go to a medium tone. I really need to start supplementing some of their different types of brands of inks, not to sell them or something like that, or to do any kind of sales pitch, but just to, you know, try to use whatever people are using out there. And if, you know, these Marvi pads are kind of discontinued, even though I say sometimes, you know, you can use any brand of inks, just kind of lay them out. People, you know, some people, and like I said, I always say it's kind of understandable. They think, oh, no, I want that color, you know, or that brand or something like that. But if I didn't have these colors too, I would mix and match. The only reason why I started carrying these a long time ago is quite often a lot of stores just weren't carrying these stamp pads, this brand of pads, and I really liked them. I kind of, you know, learned how to use blend colors using Marvi inks, so I was just very used to them. I liked the consistency of them, and I certainly liked the style of the pad in terms of the stackability and the fact that it was, you know, the plastic, the case itself was color-coded with, you know, pretty accurately with what color that you would get in the ink. So long to Marvi pads. I wish they were going to be around forever. Alright, that was the light blue, which is more of a medium blue, but I'm talking about the name of the color was light blue. It's the number 10 Marvi. Okay. Oops. This is the blue, and it's the same colored blue that I used on the darker areas of the water pattern small. Okay. Okay, I'm still kind of keeping that cabin light. A lot of people ask me, okay, and okay, like I said, if I'm approaching this with the idea that I'm teaching an instructor, I'll tell people, you know, that instructor for the Stampscapes class or whatever, I'll say a lot of times what you're going to get is you're going to get people that are going to do these techniques right there, but they're going to say, they're going to get to these darker tones, and they're going to, you know, color out everything, all right? So they're going to go in as far as they did with the previous colors. So where they put the Adirondack Lights Aqua, this, I know this is seashells, but the latest version is Adirondack Lights, the same color. They're going to go in a lot of times with the same dark color over the same areas that they added with the lighter tones. But when you get to the darker tones, what you do is you don't take those in quite as far from the outside edge in, okay? So you stay with the darker colors for the most part out on the perimeter. Now if I am going in here, you know, the middle part with this color, I'm not going with this version of it right here, okay? I'm going with like that version, okay? It's much, much lighter on here, okay? And that's the same thing on the tip right there. So if you see me going in here like this, like I said, it's not with that full saturation, it's with that. So it's going to be much, much lighter, right? So like I said, you should be able to take and really get, you know, your money's worth out of these pads. So when I look at a pad like this, super dark blue, okay, like I said, could be another brand. What I do is I'm looking at this color and I'm saying, okay, do I like this color? For the most part, for the first thing. But I'm also thinking, okay, I can take this color and I can get any color from that all the way down to the white of the paper just by using a drier version of it when you're using it in the color application process. Okay, now if you're going to take out an image and you're going to ink it up with that and give an impression, it's always going to be the full saturation and value of that ink. But in this case, you know, when you're using, you know, your pads in this fashion, or inks in this fashion of color application, okay, with the sponging method, or I guess you can brayering too, okay, you should be able to get really full saturations. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go with all super dark tones, you know, in my pads if I'm starting out a collection. You know, like I said, I use probably more of the lighter colors than I do the darker colors, but, you know, you can get by, you know, in some ways, you know, with darker tones. It won't look quite as rich because, you know, this lighter blue isn't just a lighter version of this one. You know, it's a different hue, okay? So when I lay this over the top of it, you know, and over the top of that, I get a much, you know, richer palette. It glows a little bit more. Okay, my goodness. I started off, you know, I was supposed to be just talking about the set and, you know, I don't know, the basics of the set itself, and here we are doing a scene, so, I don't know. I see a scene and I just can't, I have to, sometimes I look at it and I have to finish it. You know, I guess the question is, do I have to finish it in a, you know, in a video? But I don't know, video or not. I guess the answer is yes. I need to finish it, or I need to do something. You know, if the scene needs something. Oh well. Okay. Now this is Peach Bellini. They changed the names of these when they changed the names of the pads from Seashells to Adirondack Lights, but the Peach Bellini stayed Peach Bellini from Seashells to Adirondack Light. Okay, it's just a tannish color. This is a pink right here. Okay, a little bit too bright. Take off some of the tone like that. Okay. See that color right there? It's just a little change in hue. Okay. Let's say that it's coming from the sky. Okay. And let's say that it is casting some of that purple light. Oh, let's see, just a little subtle. Okay. Alright. Number 6. Brown, it's just basic brown. If you don't have a 6 brown, there's all kinds of distressings out there, very popular. Tim Holtz, I love those, and that would be good here too. Okay, I'm coloring the side of the cabin for the most part around that window. Okay, it's just a little brown cabin right there. Okay, if you want a little bit of that, create a little bit of continuity between the cabin and the rocks, and I can put some of this brown up there, okay? Do a little bit down here in the water too if you want to. Alright. Alright, so that's where I would stamp out my water in blue, and I would also bring those tones, those blue tones, into the scene itself with the sponging color application method, okay? Alright, now let's go back to that set, and why don't we use that pine tree again in a foreground application. I'm, at this point in time in this scene, I'm not going to stamp it out in green, okay? It's just, this scene is too dark for that. If I stamp this out, even in a dark green, down here, those background images are going to show right through it, okay? Because dye-based inks are transparent, okay? So I'm going to have to do it in black, because I'm stamping it over black imagery, you know, very dark valued imagery. See that right there? And it looks kind of funny by itself, right? So why not add a few more? I'm changing the height of it a little bit. one to the left side of the scene. And, I don't know, the finishing touches as far as color application goes. I like to take the same value of my darkest colors and apply it to the edge of my scene to kind of contain the scene a little bit more. Okay. I got this nagging feeling, you know, that I just... Okay, I promise I'm not going to do this in a video, but I don't know. I'll add some. What I'm getting is I need to add in some little embellishments into this scene, you know, details with some pigment ink. I love pigment ink to, you know, to work as fog. But you can see these two edges right here. See how they're a lot darker there? And see how it frames things off nicely like this on the edges. Now I want to put some right down here on the bottom too, so it'll kind of contain the bottom part a little bit more too. But I'm at this point in time, well, I guess that tree is kind of dry now. Sometimes when I lay down so much ink that I stamp an image on top of it, it takes a while for the ink to dry. You know, so I don't want to smudge that tree, in other words. Okay, dry enough. It's not really smearing anything. Okay. Let me see. Let me add something more to this cabin here. Let's go for a little bit more. This is a dark brown, and I'm adding it onto the cabin. Oh, let's put a little bit more tone on that roof top. Okay, and forget about these pens. These are alcohol pens. They're Marble de Plume Permanent. And maybe I can add some onto this cabin. Well, it's a little bit strong, like that. That was kind of with the medium brown. Let me go with the lighter brown and just kind of use the lighter version of this to kind of blend things out a little bit more. Down the water there. Completely invisible. This one's so light. I can't even see it. Let's see. I think there's little squiggles down into the water. Now, see, I start very, very light because, you know, I can always build up. Let me see. Let me get some of these shadows back here on the rocks. Now, obviously, it's a lot easier to do with this little pointed pen than it is with a, you know, this big sponging tip. So, that's why I'm doing it with these pens. Okay. That's pretty fun. Okay. Anyway, that is the scene. And similar composition, you know, but here, instead of that being down here, it's up here, right? So you can really kind of mix things up. Now naturally these are both quarter page scenes, but you know, I can also do, you know, a really elongated one, or different formats, or you can do a micro scene, you know, just, you know, kind of this area right here, and that would make a really effective card too, or a tag or something like that. But mix and match. Use this, you know, use these images with other images from other companies or other stamps in our line or something like this. You can use, like, you know, some kind of little canoeist or something like that, or a little bird up in the sky. That would be really fun. But anyways, you know, sometimes people ask me, and again, it's completely understandable. It's like, where do you start, you know, with, you know, if you're kind of getting into scenic stamping or something like that. And a good place to start are these sets, you know, because they come with a lot of the basic elements that you can use in a lot of different scenes, you know, and it doesn't have to be just the scene that they've kind of come, you know, with. But it could be a starting point, and you can do all kinds of compositions and different arrangements just with these images in the set, used independently or in conjunction with one another, or with how many times you use it within a scene. It can completely change the look. I mean, you can get something like this, you know, have a little bit of a rising moon or something like that in the background, and, you know, it's the same stamp as this one right here, where it's basically used, you know, as a single impression. So, anyways, basics of the sets. Thanks for watching the video. Sorry it went on so long, but I really wanted to get this scene stamped out, and I didn't want to stop the video. Okay, so hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, always drop us a note, or you can check out Stampscapes.com, and we have the information section there where it goes into a lot of different inks, and I think on one of the next upcoming videos I'll do one on paper. So, thanks again for watching.